Sri Gurubhyo Namaha, children. So we see in the part 1 that Asimno was just going away, how he got married and how his life was and how he is bidding bye to his family, and at last he is going on the way. He met a merchant and they stayed in a inn, and in the inn we found that they both lived in an adjoining room and they had a sleep. But next day morning that Asino was as early as he wake and he was just going. So from there we continued, stop children, we will continue from there in the next second part. Okay, here. Then he made his way across to the landlord of the inn, who lived in a cottage at the back, paid his bill and continued his journey. So here he got up early morning, and after early morning he paid his bill for his stay, and he was just continuing his journey. When he had gone about 25 miles, so here morning he started his journey, and after going 25 miles away, he stopped for the horse to be fed. He stopped his horse for fed. You know that they can't travel all the way, isn't it? He stopped his cart and he was just feeding his horse. And Asino rested a while in the passage of the inn. So there again in one inn he just stays there, and he was resting a while at the passage of the inn, and he was feeding his horse. Then he stepped out into the porch. So he was stepped out into the porch, and ordering a swammer to be eaten, got out his guitar and began to play. So what had happened, he ordered for a swammer and it is a drink, and he took his guitar and was singing. You know that the Asino's habit was, whenever he feels lonely and happy or sometimes sad, he used to play a guitar and he used to sing. He was very much interested to do that, and he started doing that. Suddenly a Tokyo drove up with tinkling bells, and an official alighted, followed by 2 soldiers. He came to Asino and began to question him, asking him who he was and whence he came. Asino answered him fully and said, "Won't you have some tea with me?" But the official went on cross-questioning him and asking him, "Where did you spend last night? Were you alone or with Where did you spend last night? Were you alone or with the fellow merchant? Did you see the other merchant this morning? Why did you leave the inn before dawn?" So he was just ordering a swammer and just having a drink, and he saw that something came. What is that? A Tokyo drawn by an officer with a tinkling bell. In those days the officers will be having a bell and it will be tinkling. And the official alighted, and he was followed by 2 soldiers. It was followed by 2 soldiers. He came to the Asinos and began to question him, asking him who he was and whence he came. So who he was and whence he came. Asino answered him fully and said, "Won't you have some tea with me?" So he was asking the police officer, "Won't you have some tea with me?" But the official went on cross-questioning him, and they were asking him, where did he spend last night? First question was, where did he spend last night? And were he alone or with the fellow merchant? He was alone or with the fellow merchant. Did you see the other merchant this morning? So did you see the merchant in this morning when you leaving? Why did you leave the inn before dawn? Why you left the thing before dawn? So these were the questions asked by the police officer. Asino wondered why he was asked all these questions. So he was very much frightened when police officers were asking these questions. He was very much frightened, and he was thinking, Asino wondered why he was asked all these questions. But he described all that had happened. So he was wondering why this question was asked to him, and he was answering to the police all the questions. And then added, "Why do you cross question me as if I were a thief or a robber?" So why you are questioning me like this? Do you think that I am a robber or a thief? You are asking me these questions. I am traveling on business of my own, and there is no need to question me. So he was asking, I am a merchant and I am on my own business, and there is no need to ask such question to me. So he was asking. Then the official, calling the soldier, said, "I am the police officer of this district, and I question you because the merchant with whom you spent last night has been found with his throat cut, we must search your things. So the man who was there was telling that I am a police officer and you were staying last night with a merchant. That merchant was crotched and murdered by somebody, and that's why I inquire you. And now what I am going to do, found with the throat cut, we must search your things. We have to search your things. So here he was saying search the things, and they entered the house. They entered the house in, and the soldiers and the police officer unstrapped. They removed all, the business people will be all having tied the packs or bags or whatever they having, the things which want to sold, money, everything will be tied. So they were just untying and wrapping that and just seeing what is inside, and the police was going in search of it. Okay. Asino's luggage and searched it. Suddenly the officer drew a knife out of a bag, crying, "Whose knife is this?" So here Asino's luggage, they were searching in Asino's luggage and searched it. Suddenly the officer drew a knife out of a bag, crying, "Whose knife is this?" He was asking, "Whose knife is this?" When they searched, they got a knife and they were asking, "Who's that?" Asino looked, and seeing a blood-stained knife taken from his bag, he was frightened. So he was not having any word. As he was taken, the police officer searched and they took a knife, and that knife was from his bag and it is blood stained. Now he was very much frightened. He doesn't know anything about the knife, but he was frightened when he saw the knife with the blood stain. How is it there is a blood on this knife? So knife is there and the blood also is there in the knife. Asino tried to answer but could hardly utter a word and only stammered, "I don't know, not mine." Then the police officer said, "This morning the merchant was found in the bed with his throat cut. You are the only person who could have done it. The house was locked from inside and no one else was there. Here is this blood-stained knife in your bag, and your face and manner betray you. Tell me how you killed him and how much money you stole." So now there is nothing proof or no witness for him. He was having in his bag the knife with a blood stain, and the police officer told that your knife is with you, so you must be killed. And both were staying night, and you didn't bid a bye to him in the morning. You started your journey in the morning, early morning, so before the dawn. So maybe you are the person who have done it, and you are the thing. And he was not getting a word to open his mouth. He was stammering and he's saying that it does not belong to me. The knife is not belong to me. I am not the person. He was telling and explaining, but even then it was not accepted by the police. Asino promised, swore he had not done it, that he had not seen the merchant after they had tea together, that he had no money except 8,000 rubles of his own, and that the knife was not his, but his voice was broken, his face pale, and he trembled with fear as though he went guilty. So here he was very much frightened, and that frightened makes him pale, and he was saying that he promised he had not done it. He was swear that he had not done it, that he had not seen the merchant after they had tea together. They had a tea together, but after having a tea, they were not met at all. That he had no money except 8,000 rubles. Only 8,000 rubles were there with him of his own, and that the knife was not his, and the knife was not his, but his voice was broken. So here you know that when you are frightened, your voice will be broken, and it is broken. His face became pale and the trembled with fear. So he trembled with fear as though he went guilty. So as if we were guilty, he was feeling and frightened, and because of the fright he was trembling and no words from his mouth. So the police thought he was the person who had done the mistake. The police officer ordered the soldiers to bind Asino and to put him in the cart as they tied his feet together. So here the policeman officer ordered the other police to tie him up and put in the cart. So they were just tying him and they were putting him in the cart. and flung him into the cart. Asino crossed himself and wept. He was crossed and he was crying and weeping. His money and goods were taken from him. So his money was taken, his goods were taken, and he was sent to the nearest town and imprisoned there. So he was taken to the nearest town and he was imprisoned there. And inquiries as to his character were made in Valmir. The merchants and the other inhabitants of that town said that in former days he used to drink and waste his time, but that he was a good man. Then the trial came on. He was charged with murdering a merchant from Ryazan and robbing him of 20,000 rubles. So here at last what had happened, they were just thinking that and flung him into the cart. They were just put him in the cart and he was crying and weeping there. And he was taken to the nearest town, and there he was imprisoned, and enquiries was taking place there as the character were made in Valdemar. Their enquiries were made, and in Valdemar they were saying that he was very young. Before marriage he was drunken, but after marriage he was a very good person, and he was leading a very nice life. Other inhabitants of the town said that in former days he used to drink and waste his time, but that he was a good man. He was very good man. Then the trial came on. At last the trial came on, and after the trial came, he was charged with murdering a merchant from Ryazan. So he was just charged for the murdering a merchant from Ryazan and robbing him of 20,000 rubles. So 20,000 rubles had been taken from him. So that was the case filed on him, and he was just taken, and he was taken into the prison as a prisoner. So his wife was in despair and did not know what to believe. Her children were all quite small. One was a baby at her breast, taking them all with her. She went to the town where her husband was in jail. At first she was not allowed to see him, but after much begging, she obtained permission from the officials and was taken to him. When she saw her husband in a prison, dressed and chains shut up with thieves and criminals, she fell down and did not come to a sense for a long time. Then she drew her children to her and sat down near him. She told him of things at home and asked about what had happened to him. He told her all, and she asked, "What can we do now?" So here his wife was despaired, hearing that Asino was taken to a prison, and he was a prisoner there. He was imprisoned and he was a prisoner there in the jail, and she was running, and she got permission from the higher official, and she was taken to see him. When she saw, she was having children, taking them all with her. She went, so one was a baby at her breast. So her children were all quite small. She had a small children, and one was at the breast. Taking them all with her, she went to the town where her husband was in jail. So her husband was in the jail. She was taken the children along with her there. At first they were rejected. At last they allowed her to see, and when she saw her husband taken to him, when she saw her husband in the prison dress and in chains, shut up the thieves and criminals, she fell down and did not come to the sense. So she was not able to accept whether that will be the thing, and she fell down and did not come to a sense for a long time. Then she drew her children to her and sat down near him. She told him of things at home and asked about what had happened to him. He told her all. So what had happened to her, she was asking, and she was telling, he told her all, and she asked, "What can we do now? So you have been taken as a prisoner, what can we do now?" So she was asking. Then she went, she must petition the Gaza not to let an innocent man perish. So she went with the petition to the Tsar not to let an innocent man perish. His wife told him that she had sent a petition to the Gaza, but it had not been accepted. So there the thing was not accepted. Asino did not reply, but only looked downcast. So he was not able to answer anything, was looking at her. And then his wife said, "It was not for nothing. I dreamt your hair had turned grey. You remember, you should not have." So now again she says that, "I told you I had a dream. your hair is just changing as a gray, and so you should not have come. So she was saying, you should not have started that day. So, and passing her fingers through his hair, she said, Vanya dearest, tell your wife the truth. Was it not you who did it? So again when she goes near him and she just touches his hair and just asks, Vanya dearest, tell your wife the truth. Was it not you who did it? So even the wife was not having a trust on her husband. So she also had a doubt, suspect that maybe he would have done it. And so you too suspect me. So he got angry. You too suspect me, said Asino, and hiding his face in his hands, he began to weep. Even as a wife is not believing him, because he felt very much sad, and he started weeping for it. And then a soldier came to say that the wife and children must go away. And Asino said goodbye to his family for the last time. So then he said a goodbye to his family last time. Later he had not seen his family, wife and children at all. When they were gone, Asino recalled what had been said, and when he remembered that his wife also had suspected him, he said to himself, it seems that only God can know the truth. It is to him alone we must appeal, and from him alone expect mercy. So here he was understood that nobody is believing him. The police officers, the judges, the other people, even his wife had suspected him that maybe he would have done it. So when they were gone, Asino recalled what had been said, and when he remembered that his wife also had suspected him, he said to himself, it seems that only God can know the truth. It is to him alone we must appeal, and from him alone expect mercy. So here you know that God only knows the thing, and if God is knowing that, we have to expect God's mercy only. That is only is possible, and from him alone expect mercy. And Asino wrote no more petitions, gave up all hope, and only prayed to God. So then what he had done, he left all writing the petition to the other officers. He was praying in the prison and just having a hope, gave up all the hope, and only was doing prayer. So he started praying, and he was praying in the jail. Asino was condemned to be flogged. So Asino was condemned to be flogged and sent to him the mines. So he was flogged with the knot, and when he wounds made by the knot were healed, he was driven to Siberia with other convicts. So Asino was condemned to flogged and sent to the mines. He was sent to the mines. He was tied and he was sent to the mines. So he was flogged with a knot. There was a knot, and when the wounds made by the knot were healed. So later the wounds made by the knot were healed. He was driven to Siberia. At last he was driven to Siberia with other convicts. With other convicts he was taken to Siberia. And for 26 years, Asino lived as a convict in Siberia. His hair turned white as snow, and his beard grew long, thin and grey. All his myth went. He stooped, he walked slowly, spoke little, and never laughed, but he often prayed. So here he had passed 26 years in the jail, and this 26 years Asino lived as a convict in Siberia. So he was made as a convict in Siberia. His hair turned white as snow. So his hair turned as white as snow, and his beard grew long, thin and grey. So it became long, thin and grey. All his myth went, all his strength and strongness, boldness, everything went, and he stooped. He became, instead of being stiff, he was stooped, and he walked very slowly. He walked slowly and spoke little to others, and never laughed. He never laughed in the jail, but he often prayed. Often he'll be praying. In prison, Asino learned to make boots and earned a little money, with which he bought the lives of the saints. He read this book when there was light enough in the prison, and on Sundays in the prison church he read the lessons. So here in prison, Asino learned to make boots. So he learned to make boots, and he earned a little money with that. And with which he bought with that little money, he bought a book. The name of the book is The Lives of Saints. He read his book when there was a light. So when there was a light in the prison, he'll be reading that book. And enough in the prison, and on Sundays in the prison church, he read the lesson. Sang in the choir, for his voice was still good. So in the church he'll be learning the lesson and he'll be singing songs. His voice was very good, so he'll be sang in the choir, for his voice was still good. The prison authorities liked Asino for his meekness, and his fellow prisoners respected him. They called him grandfather and they saint. When they wanted to petition the prison authority about anything, they always made Asino their spokesman, and when there were quarrels among the prisoners, they came to him to put things right and to judge the matter. So in the prison he became as a saint. He was living his life as a saint. Some will be calling him as a grandfather and others will be calling him as a saint, and they also made Asino their spokesman. So here when there was quarrel and fight among the prisoners, they made the spokesman him, and he'll be with a higher authority. When they want to speak, they'll be asking him to speak. So these were the things he was doing in the prison. No news reached Asino from his home, and he did not even know if his wife and children were still alive. So no news had reached him about his family members, and he was not knowing whether his wife and children were alive or not. So this was the condition of him, and he was very much worried. One day a fresh gang of convicts came to the prison. So what happened? One day a fresh gang of convicts came to the prison. In the evening, the old prisoner collected round the new ones and asked them what towns or villages they came from and what they were sentenced for. Among the rest, Asino sat down near the newcomers and listened with downcast air to what was said. So here a group of convicts came. I know that usually the police or the officer jailer who is there inside will be enquiring them. While they were just having an enquiry, so what had happened here? The newcomer inquiry, and the newcomer was there, and the newcomer is just telling about their history and what they made a mistake and why they came to jail. And Asino was sitting among them and he was listening to that. Children, will keep a stop here and we'll continue the lesson in the third part, children. Thank you.